Coming up in today's Jamaica Magazine, discover some hidden gems in the parish of St. Thomas. Plus, a look back at the achievements of the Justice Ministry in 2021. We also have the news of the day and much more. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Stay tuned.
It's absolutely critical that we receive the vaccines. You will see hospitalizations and indeed deaths likely come down. And so there is a lot of value to be gained by getting as many vulnerables on board as possible. So tell your mothers, tell your aunts, listen out for yourselves if you're over 60 and take the vax, because the vax is what will help you to guard against the COVID virus. And indeed, help your relatives, your friends, those who you come in contact with for the same benefit.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, January 11, 2022. New ministers have been appointed while others were reassigned as Prime Minister Andrew Holness made changes to the cabinet on Monday. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the changes are designed to facilitate greater coordination and synergy of resources. The ministers were sworn in during a virtual ceremony at Jamaica House earlier today. Floyd Green, Robert Morgan, and Homer Davis have been appointed Minister without Portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister. Robert Montague and Matthew Samuda have been reassigned to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation as Ministers without Portfolio. Dr. Horace Chang remains the National Security Minister, and Xavier Main is his Minister of State. Pernell Charles Jr. is the new Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, with Frank Witter as his junior minister. Audley Shaw will head the Transport and Mining Ministry, with J.C. Hutchinson as Minister of State. As for the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, this will be led by Aubin Hill. Ministers Fable Williams, Kamina Johnson-Smith, Nigel Clark, Darrell Vaz, Desmond McKenzie, Edmund Bartlett, Carl Samuda, Delroy Chuck, Christopher Tufton, and Olivia Grange retain their former portfolio responsibilities. Former Attorney General Marlene Malahoo Fort has been tapped to lead a newly created Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. Prime Minister Holness says this move reflects the need for greater focus and attention on constitutional and legal reform, as well as improving the pace of development and passage of legislation through the Parliament. Meanwhile, former Contractor General Dr. Derek McCoy is the new Attorney General. Dr. McCoy comes to the post with significant knowledge and experience in law. He is the former Dean of the Faculty of Law at the University of the West Indies, Mona. Dr. McCoy's appointment follows the reassigning of Marlene Malahoo Fort. In other news, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says he will be initiating an assessment of the Vision 2030 National Development Plan. The plan is for Jamaica to reach developed nation status by the year 2030. Mr. Holness says the review is separate from the built-in assessment of the plan that's managed by the Planning Institute of Jamaica.
I'm going to also seek to do a kind of external review as to where we are for our benchmarks against getting to Vision 2030. Because I don't think that we are all serious and on the same page about getting to that Vision 2030.
Mr. Holness was speaking last Wednesday at the Heal the Family, Heal the Nation National Day of Prayer, staged by the Power of Faith Ministries in St. Catherine. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says government may need to carry out constitutional reform of how it uses emergency powers regulations to deal with extraordinary situations. Part of the review would look at the two-thirds majority requirement for legislation to pass. In November, the Senate voted against a 3-month extension of the states of public emergency in 7 police divisions across the island. As he responded to questions Sunday, Mr. Holness reasoned that he would also be renewing social engagement efforts with the opposition, citizens, commercial interests, and civil society. The Prime Minister says there's need to have greater powers to address the crime rate, which is over and beyond the capacity of the security forces.
We are in a state of emergency. Whether or not you agree that it is constitutionally so is a different issue from what the actual state of play is. And if anyone doesn't recognize that we are in a state of emergency, which by definition means that you have to use exceptional powers to treat with those issues, then those persons don't live in Jamaica. They are blind, or they have a particular political motive to see the government's efforts fail for their political benefit.
We will have to look at everything, and it is not to be seen as taking power from anyone. But the truth is that in a democracy, an elected government is elected to govern and must govern.
The Jamaica Constabulary Force is reporting that 37 murders were recorded in the first 8 days of the year, a 32% increase over the same period last year. And finally, the Ministry of Health and Wellness says Jamaica could reach the peak week of the fourth wave of the coronavirus pandemic by the end of January or early February. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa McKenzie says the projections are that the country could see as many as 11,500 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 during that peak week.
We're seeing right across the world that with the Omicron virus, it is proving to be a more transmissible virus, and so the numbers are rapidly increasing in several countries. And we have started to see that here. And based on the projections using the reproductive number, it could mean that we may take another 3 weeks or so to get to the peak of our this fourth wave. And in that peak week, we could have as much as 11,500 cases being confirmed based on the present numbers.
Dr. Bisesa McKenzie was addressing a recent press briefing. She says as the number of confirmed cases increase, the number of deaths can also increase in the region of 200 to 300 in that peak week.
The number of beds occupied could go way above the 1,200 where we were in the third surge, and could go up to almost 2,500 persons on beds.
Dr. Bisesa McKenzie reiterated the need for persons to get vaccinated and adhere to all the infection prevention and control measures. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
What a way you're full of our roots and culture. That was in Jamaica 60. Jamaica 60? What a piece of news, Miss Matty. I feel like my heart going bust up.
Just in, the island of Jamaica is on the verge of celebrating its 60th year of independence.
I only we have to celebrate it. They say the people them them come here, you know. But you see, when our people decide, say the other people them free paper, burn up, them say if it's war, start it, whatever. We all collect medal, pants of it,
medal.
Amount of tongue we give them, you know.
The celebrations are slated to begin on January 1st, 2022. Organized by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. We have more in this report.
I am on site and planning activities are ablaze. Persons are advised to download the Reggae Jamaica app to know what it pre. Activities for the Jamaica 60 celebration.
I don't know the app to get the updates then.
Last year, the Ministry of Justice continued its efforts to ensure a cohesive, secure and just society. Watch this next feature to find out how.
We are making commendable strides on our way to meet the Chief Justice's goal to have a justice system that is among the best in the Caribbean and the world.
And 2021 witnessed the imprint of those strides as government judiciously manned the continuous turning of the wheels of justice in Jamaica, where not even a prolonged pandemic could disrupt its flow. Like all areas of government, the Ministry of Justice is set on recovering even stronger. So, as we move forward into the possibilities of peace, justice, and good governance, here's a look back at the year that was.
We are now improving the justice environment.
Things are already in motion to provide residents in and around St. Anne with a newly constructed state-of-the-art family court. A $90.87 million contract was signed during the year. The judiciary also established the Family and Probate Division of the Supreme Court to hear matters related to divorce, division of property, and child custody and maintenance. The Westmoreland Family Court received its permanent home, following the acquisition of a $38.5 million property in 2021. Added to that, the ministry undertook advanced renovation and expansion works at the Clarendon and Manchester Parish Courts. And a new Justice Centre was opened in Augustown.
When the Ministry of Justice says that it is facilitating access to justice for all, this is what it looks like.
Last year, the judiciary was expanded with over 30 judges sworn into higher office. A commission consisting of senior judges was also established to improve the leadership and management of parish courts across the island.
Madam Speaker, there's an area that I have given a lot of attention to, and that is the training and empowerment of justices of the peace, and also to increase the number of notary public.
Over 600 justices of the peace were commissioned into service, while the Justice Training Institute JTI trained more than 1,600 JPs.
During a major crisis, such as the COVID-19, the courts have shown great resilience and have actually improved their output and productivity.
The judiciary recorded a significant reduction in case backlog across the court system, with the gun court becoming up to date with all cases last year.
The gun court, many will be pleased to know, is our first court that has actually met international standards.
The revenue court is also completely backlog-free by the end of October 2021, and the case clearance rates in the parish courts recorded a significant increase.
And that is consistent with the best performing courts globally.
Last year, the Ministry of Justice began a $4.8 million installation of fiber optic cables in 8 of the island's courts. But that wasn't all for technology in 2021, because vulnerable witnesses were given priority with 2 retrofitted mobile units handed over to the Court Administration Division, equipped with video conference capabilities. And through technological advancements, the ministry was able to launch an animation series to offer therapeutic intervention to children who are victims of crime.
The Ministry of Justice has been giving ongoing support to the courts, equipping them with the modern infrastructure and the technology necessary to conduct business efficiently.
As must happen in the halls of justice, important bills were taken to Parliament last year. The Senate passed the Judicature Appellate Jurisdiction Amendment Act 2021 and the Judicature Parish Courts Amendment Act 2021, so the prosecution in criminal matters now have the right to appeal the verdicts handed down by the parish and higher courts. A bill was also passed to validate payments made to legal aid lawyers. Their fees increased to the equivalent of 15% to 25% of those for private lawyers. And the Justice Minister tabled a bill to amend the Extradition Act to allow for the admission of certain certified documents in extradition proceedings.
Court efficiency, easy access to justice services, and the timely delivery of justice are the hallmarks of a first-class justice system. We have taken the first steps towards these objectives.
So, as the Ministry of Justice continues to take those steps towards a world-class justice system, what's even more promising is that
the best is yet to come.
Up next, a review of the news of the week from the Office of the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister declares Parade Gardens as Zone of Special Operations, visits National Identification Systems Enrollment Site, and promises tougher amendments to Firearms Act. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Anthony Morgan. On Sunday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness declared Parade Gardens in central Kingston a Zone of Special Operations ZOZO. The zone is in effect for 60 days and is the first area to be established since the start of the year. Mr. Holness revealed that Parade Gardens accounted for 16 of the 79 murders that took place in central Kingston in 2021. Implementing the ZOZO is expected to improve community development and quell ongoing gang warfare in the area.
We believe that this nexus between the security operation and the community development operation will ensure that these communities will sustain the peace for a long period of time. You can imagine that this is therefore a resource-intense activity, and it is a long-term commitment from the JCF and the JDF in men and material. We are not going back to lockdown, so be calm. And I've said what the strategy is. It is now in your hands. Go and take the vaccine. That is the strategy.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness responding to questions on government's pandemic response at Sunday's press briefing. The island has seen a sharp increase in confirmed COVID-19 cases in the past few weeks. On January 10, the island recorded 953 new cases and 2 deaths. During Sunday's press conference, Prime Minister Holness shot down assertions being made for the Accompang Maroons in St. Elizabeth to be an independent state. The Maroons believe the 1738 treaty with the British formed the basis of their right for self-governance, as well as their occupation of lands in the cockpit country. But in refuting those claims, Mr. Holness said Jamaica was a unitary state with a duly constitutionally elected government as the sole authority.
There is no other sovereign authority in Jamaica other than the government of Jamaica. I want that to be absolutely clear. None. And under my leadership, not 1 inch of Jamaica will come under any other sovereign authority.
The Prime Minister reasoned that the claim has economic and social implications which could lead to a breakdown of the state. He used the recent staging of the Accompang Maroon Festival as an example, during which a man was killed and several persons, including a minor, were injured.
This is the stuff of how guerrilla wars come and states break down. Wake up, Jamaica. Don't court foolishness and problems. Wake up. People have died as a result. And you expect me to stand there as Prime Minister and fund activities that could lead to the breakdown of our state? Never.
Early in the week, the Prime Minister confirmed that the National Identification System NIDS would be operational this year. He gave the commitment on Tuesday, touring the NIDS enrollment site at the Post and Telecoms Department. The site will produce, store and distribute the identification cards under the program. Mr. Holness was told that NIDS was 80% complete, with testing and fine-tuning of the system to take place in the next 4 months. Once complete, the Prime Minister says the system will allow government to streamline its services to properly plan for and distribute public resources.
One of the big problems we have always faced as a government is that some get and then others don't. And one of the reasons why you have that problem is that we just don't account for everyone. So we are not able to plan for everyone. And what we're doing in our 60th year now with the establishment of the NIDS is to ensure that every single Jamaican can be included, accounted for, and properly served with the national identification system.
Mr. Holness also gave assurance that the NIDS data would be secured with high encryption and protected from duplication or misuse. The country can expect new amendments to the Firearms Act in 2022. Prime Minister Holness made the pledge at Wednesday's annual Heal the Family, Heal the Nation National Day of Prayer, put on by Power of Faith Ministries in Portmore, St. Catherine. Pointing to the recent spate of killings on the island, the Prime Minister said government would get even tougher on illegal guns.
We are strong on this. And our administration is bringing this bill to Parliament, and I am expecting the full support of the Parliament in passing the legislation to show that Jamaica in our 60th year will remove from our society illegal guns and other weapons.
To complement the amended firearms legislation, Mr. Holness says government will continue the implementation of the National Crime Plan, as well as its heavy investment in the security forces. And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Our arrival figures are climbing. We have welcomed over 36,000 cruise passengers. Jamaica's tourism sector is ripe for investment. Jamaica is well on its way to recovery.
Now we're going to take a trip to one of the oldest parishes on the island, which is also the birthplace of one of our national heroes. Coming up, we visit destinations in the historic parish of St. Thomas.
It's one of the oldest parishes in the island that might have been originally named after Thomas Hickman Lord Windsor, the then governor of Jamaica in 1662. Seated in a right angle, bordered by the spellbinding St. Andrew on the west, the picturesque Portland on the north, and then gently washed by the waves of the Seine Caribbean Sea.
Bienvenido a St. Thomas.
Welcome to St. Thomas. Full place. St. Thomas, we're there.
St. Thomas today now. Welcome to St. Thomas.
However you put it, we're there, St. Thomas. Join us on this travelogue. We'll be moving throughout the creases and corners of this beauty, turning the pages of our local history book, in which you will see the old Burden Wharf, Judgment Cliff, Roselle Waterfall, and other places. The cliff high above the Landaway community in St. Thomas at first glimpse appears to be just like any other overlooking the parish. But take a second look and you'll notice that a section of it is completely gone. Known as Judgment Cliff, it got its name from a story of how an entire community was wiped out during the 1692 earthquake. It's a story that passed through generations in the community and one that residents readily recount to passerbys like myself.
Judgment Cliff, I was informed that they used to have a plantation up there run by a serious, wicked slave master. Imposed draconian measures on the farmers, and one of the reasons why they resided on the cliff, that in case the slave wanted to run away, they would have difficulty in doing so. The place collapsed. I guess during the same time, Port Royal earthquake was taking place. That was 1692.
It was a plantation to people who lived there too. Everybody get covered out. Them say, when it happens at night, they say a man, a rooster, and a bull save. The man gone out, gone wild. The rooster fly off of the roost. The bull broke down the pen, gone out, gone wild, same like the man.
We're still set on traveling this allure, blessed indeed by the events of history. Right now, we're headed to a gem up the road on the corner. Tumbling over the rocks onto the roadside is an area known for its pristine waterfalls and fishes. The Roselle Waterfall is used for bathing and even for washing by residents or those passing by. It was once a busy area for commerce and entertainment prior to Hurricane Dean in 2007. But despite that, residents still enjoy the untouched water and how it seemingly removes all pains and ills. And from that water that falls, our next stop is a spot where the residents fish.
This fishing area named Lethal Beach, right? When the weather good, we go to sea and fish. When it's bad, we have to stay on the land. Well, we're doing this about some 50 years now, and we do it for a living. So I maintain the family. We have to prepare the net. We buy the net ready-made, and we put on the fittings towards it. We put on the lead and the cork and so on. Like what you see it here, you know, we put it in the boat and go out and fish. We catch all type of fish. We catch snapper, we catch parrot, drum, barracuda, doctor fish, all type of different fishes. Sometimes tourists pass and them take pictures and all them kind of things. And them like when they're knitting in it, sometimes them spend all the day with it. This is my daily living, and that's something I enjoy all my life. I don't know whether it's work but fishing now.
Back in the days, over Bournemouth, they usually do export a lot of things over there. We even use our small canoe and go over there to fishing through the day. It's just across from the other side of the fishing village.
St. Thomas is a major growing area for food such as banana, coffee, coconut, sugarcane, and even for fishing. It houses one of the island's natural deep water harbors that was once used as a port for exporting these same food items. Now, we couldn't come to St. Thomas and not mention anything about our national hero Paul Bogle or the popular Morant Bay Rebellion.
Yeah, the Morant Bay Rebellion took place at the Morant Bay Courthouse with Paul Bogle and his followers marching from Stony Gut to Morant Bay.
Poverty and inequality in the society forced Paul Bogle to lead the protest march to this courthouse on October 11, 1865. In a violent confrontation with official forces, nearly 500 people were killed and more were flogged and punished before order was finally restored. On October 24, 1865, Paul Bogle was arrested and executed at this very same spot of land, the Morant Bay Courthouse. And just like that, we've ended our tour in this natural and material beauty, unfolding the stories behind just a few places. If you haven't been here already, then what are you waiting for?
That's all for today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. Do join us again tomorrow at the same time on this station for another show. You can also watch this and many other editions of Jamaica Magazine. Visit the GIS YouTube channel or website. Don't forget to visit our social media pages and leave a comment or like. I'm Adrian Atkinson. On behalf of the entire team here at the GIS, enjoy the rest of your evening.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.